We are live. This is the Yes California Recall Candidate Debate Series, where we're doing one-on-one interviews with all of the candidates that we've been able to interact with, about 25% of the ballot qualified people. Today, we have a special treat. Candidate Holly BAADE. Holly was featured in the article about candidates as cars, and she did best amongst all candidates with her description of what car she would be. I believe it was a 1970s, 1960s circa wood panel van with the surfboards attached to it. Very California. I mean, indistinguishably and categorically. We're doing interviews with all the candidates. Holly is here. We're going to talk about her campaign. I'll ask her a series of questions, and then we'll ask her about the big question that we like thinking everybody in California should discuss. But we'll do that after we talk about some politics. So, Holly, could you introduce yourself to everybody in case they haven't met you in about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, maybe two? Who are you? Are you running for governor? What's that about? What are you trying to do? Imagine I've never met you and you had 2 minutes to tell me, who are you? What's this about? And then we'll get into the tough questions from Yes California.
Okay, thank you so much, Marcus. And thank you so much for having me on this program and also for holding the critical space that you are for all of the candidates who want to be a part of real conversations, roundtable discussions. I appreciate your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, when I was a little girl, I had big hopes and dreams that were beyond my scope of understanding. That one day I would be able to freely express myself and discover who it was I was meant to be and what it was I was meant to bring. You know, I arrived in this world with a lot of the same questions that all of us do. Why am I here? What am I meant to do? And how can I contribute? And there's an impulse within most of us to answer these questions in a real, authentic way. What I experienced, of course, these were all like questions I didn't know I was holding, but they are more like feelings. Sometimes that's how journeys begin, right? Like a feeling that's drawing you somewhere and you don't even know how to articulate it. So I was drawn into being kind of a feisty, fearsome, sweet, explorative, adventuresome girl. And I found out right away that the world just did not really want to hear what I had to say. It wasn't very interested in like holding this open door for me to explore all the things I wanted to explore and to learn all that I wanted to learn. And you know, so who I am is really somebody who wants to change the world and create a welcome for each human and each new child that comes into our world to say, welcome, light being. We're so happy that you're here. Can't wait to discover what it is that you bring. And here are all of the ways in which you are loved and supported on this journey as we find out together what your gifts are. And I guess this is the core of who I am. And everything around who I am in the center of my heart really is in service to this purpose, is to helping to shape the world in a way that is welcoming to all people and in a way that is safe and allows us all to flourish, and not just singularly, but collectively. And so I find myself here running for California state government because our system is broken, our governance is filled with criminal activity, and somehow I feel that I could lead us into a different way of becoming more of who we all want to be, and being supported in a way that we all long for in our hearts, and to create a world that we all know is possible, but just don't know how to arrive at it together. I feel like I have some ideas and some knowing as to how to lead our state and really this part of the world and humanity into a creative new way. And I think that's what we're ready for. We're all ready for something new to emerge. And I'm ready for that. So I don't know. That's one way to answer your question. There's so many ways I could answer your question.
That's we prompt, and then you give the response, and the viewers decide whatever they want of it, and
Yeah.
that's honestly you. So that's what I love about this, is that they're actually seeing you, not what the filters say, not what the news says. This is you as you want to be seen. You're getting it pure, and voters can make whatever decision they want.
So we're just going to be organic here on this side of it too, and not try to be political or, dress myself up in any way, except for just to be as authentic and raw and as, true as possible to the core of the question that you're asking, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So what it sounds like you are talking a lot about the metaphysical spirit of California, not just the government and the policies, but I think the way that the ancients used to look at their nations, like England. The king is the country is the king, the country is the land. So I get the impression that the way you view these things is not just, policy is one aspect, and it goes into spirit, sociology, the feeling of the people. Is that a fair summary, that some of the candidates seem to stop at just a strict policy analysis, and you go beyond into looking at the spirit and the feel, and does it feel wholesome in California?
Marcus, I really feel seen by your question. Thank you for asking me that question.
All right.
So the way that I perceive reality is that it's built upon the agreements that we make. There's nobody else here but us that is making up how we are agreeing to live with each other. There's no outside force that's creating this as our reality. It's all of us that are agreeing to hold it in form. So you could say, on one hand, it's like spiritual and metaphysical, but on the other, it's actually quite just logical, right? So, for example, 24 hours in a day. Who said that there was 24 hours in a day? 7 days in a week. Who said that? The dollar is worth this amount of value. Who said that? Who agreed to that? Your house is worth a certain amount of value. Who is saying that? Who is agreeing to that? We invest our energy and our yes into certain contracts. There's a contract that we're all holding, that there's 24 hours in a day. The day itself comes and goes. It doesn't think of itself in 24 hours. Do you think that nature itself is perceiving itself in increments of 24 hours? I mean, how ridiculous is that?
Right.
That's right. So that's created by
You look at it that way, yeah.
Right? That's created by our thought. And so I guess originally enough people thought that, okay, well, that's one way to measure it. And if you go back to the origin of that measurement, in this case, the hours of a day, you'll see that there were patterns that allowed themselves to be measured in that way that made sense to our minds, to the minds of that time. So the natural rhythm and cycles of nature lent themselves to being able to be described in these increments. But really, it's a mental function. And so when I say that our reality is created by our agreements, what I'm saying is that there are agreements in place before we get here, before I was born, before you were born. Somebody already said that there was 24 hours in a day. Somebody already said that we were using dollars in the United States before you got here, before I got here, right? And so it's for us to say, okay, well, that is how it is. That's just reality. No, that's not just reality. That is an accumulation of a number of people being willing over time to agree to the same thing. That
Right.
creates reality. So,
Tradition.
yeah, I mean, how could it be anything other than that? So, so in a way, you could say that we are the creators of our reality, and it comes from where we put our agreement, where we put our yes, and how we're willing to do that without questioning. So, okay, so without questioning or without saying no, thank you to that, because there's something that feels off in an agreement that we're being asked to just accept, right? And so there's moments inside where we can all feel this doesn't feel right. And you can say that that is spiritual. You could say that that is the capacity of our heart to perceive. Um, you could say that that is like a gut feeling that's more maybe even um, not even to do with the spirit, but to do with like our physiological nature that has to like this inner knowing of fight or flight or everything's all right. I like that one.
They
Um,
never cover that one, right? Like
right?
there's actually three stasis in the hippocampus. Yeah.
Yeah, fight, flight, and everything's all right.
Yeah. Just keep doing what you're doing. Yeah.
So,
Well,
I'm kind of going to the again the basis of how I perceive things, but I'm doing that for a purpose, which is to help people understand that spiritual perspective doesn't have to be something that is not grounded in our reality. And actually, it is our spirit, our human spirit, and our capacity to perceive and feel and discern and choose and will that actually creates our reality individually and collectively. And my whole point in this election cycle, this conversations with other candidates and when talking with individuals is, well, is this how you would like to live? Or
uh,
is there something else that you have inside of yourself that you actually feel wants to be born into reality and into our governance at this time? And do you feel empowered to choose something that you haven't been told to choose? Because it looks a certain way, because it seems like the same thing as what was chosen before, right? How can a woman that's wearing a dress and letting her hair be down and being relaxed, how can that kind of person possibly have any capacity to lead and offer governance, right? And even I've been told by beautiful people that I love, put a power suit on and put your hair back so you look more like a man. It's like, okay, because that's a certain like agreement that's in our culture that if I want to actually be a smart woman, I have to be more masculine in my right? So that exists as a thought that women are adhering to and have adhered to, which is one of the reasons why we're so out of balance in our culture. But I'm not saying that that's wrong, but I'm just saying that's not right for me because that wouldn't be authentic to who I am. Maybe it would fit somebody else just fine, but doesn't fit who I am, and I want to be very authentic. So, what I'm asking everybody to consider right now is, do the set of agreements that we have as Californians provide us with well being? Or are they creating constriction to our personal creativity, to our capacity to generate right livelihood, to our capacity to appreciate one another as individuals and as different cultures, and a multitude of things. And so I'm not interested in just looking at an issue, because really an issue like is really being dictated by the same folks that are in power structures that are trying to draw our attention to those issues that they're creating. And I'm not interested in playing that game, but I can go more into that.
If I may, so I think what
Yeah.
you're saying is that the reason that you're looking at these planes beyond these planes of existence that affect us, like emotions and spirit and assumptions of society's deep sociology, on top of the existing policy realm. The reason that you go beyond where the politicians are looking at policy into these additional layers is because they exist, they're real, they have an impact on us, and they equal all of the assumptions that make up basically everything. And many people just assume that their lot in life is what it is and assume that their future is going to be. And I think what you're getting at is that if you start to look at those other layers beyond policy, you can start to ask yourself, does it have to be this way? Can it be a different way? And there's really no limit to the exploration of how they could change their life if they're open to thinking in all of the dimensions. Is that roughly your motivation for looking at this in this manner?
Exactly. Think of all of the heroic figures that we all love and idolize, from fictional characters in movies and books or true to life characters. They all essentially ask the same question that you just did, which is, could I see myself differently than the society is asking me to see myself? How does a person in slavery, born into slavery, for example, I love the movie Blood Diamond.
Oh, with Leonardo DiCaprio? That was
Yeah,
great.
that, I don't know why that one comes to mind, but there's somebody that's born into the malaise of the African diamond and other, you know, um, usurping powers system, but he saw something in himself, and he it's almost like the external diamond that he found was an external form of the already diamond within himself, of how he perceived himself as being worth something beyond how he was being treated and told he was. So that was like a real tangible example of how he was able to draw himself out of his life situation by first conceiving that he could and that he should, and then waiting for the right time. So what I'm saying is that this is the right time for Californians, for our nation, for the world. We all feel it, and we don't know how, so we don't know what to do. But I'm saying, well, that shouldn't stop us.
Leave a chair open for the universe was how some colleagues that I knew in Berkeley called it. And you don't know the answer, but are you even asking the question? And are you opening yourself up to receive the answer from the universe, which could be the grandma next door, perhaps a movie that you watch, perhaps a sign in the stars. But if you're not even thinking about the question and open to receiving an answer, well, you'll never get an answer.
Well, one of the challenges that we have with most of our political leaders is that they come through institutions that we are taught to revere and feel as though there's something so special within these institutions that they take people through them and they prepare them for the capacity to lead others in ways that then we feel they're qualified. So, for example, Kevin Kiley, I think he mentioned in a talk where I heard him speak that he's gone to both Harvard and Yale. And many of our leaders have gone through these institutions, and they've been schooled in law most of the time, not exclusively, but there's a perception that these institutions qualify people to become power brokers in our society. But what we don't understand is that so long as we let them give us the measure of who is qualified because they are in this small private club, see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then we are also held in that prison of our own minds because we've given our agreement over. It's not even that we're saying that we are discerning from one candidate versus another, like on a level playing field. There's already a hoop with which you have to be in before you can even sort of play ball. One thing that I feel is, wonderful in this recall election is we do have a front runner right now with Larry Elder. I do not support his candidacy for many reasons.
Really? That's a joke. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think that he is his own worst enemy because he is on record as saying so many derogatory things to all kinds of people, especially women, but not only women, that I feel that, I don't know that people are really listening to what he's saying so much as they are looking at what he looks like. He looks like a successful African American person of color who has the charisma to speak and hold himself strong, whatever he's saying. And part of me really loves that because I would like to support and champion people outside of the system. I don't know that he went to Harvard. I don't know that he came through the normal channels, of who gets to play ball in that way. And in that way, I think it could be like an incremental step towards something more. But the problem is when we just look at people on the surface and we're not really discerning, then we're not really progressing. We're actually being controlled by the same system that we want to break out of.
Yeah. For just to back you up, why is somebody running for office in California so proud about East Coast schools? The fact is that for the last decade, UC Berkeley, UCLA, and Stanford have outranked Harvard and Yale. If you really want to show off, why didn't you go to California-based schools that are better and harder to get into than those schools? And why are you holding this up when our universities do better? On top of the fact that you're saying, why is it that listing off universities is a pedigree for being in office? How do we know that you have what it actually takes? I can't tell you the number of times that I have a debate with people and they go, well, it should be, everybody who runs must have a college degree and they must have this much education. And I go, do you know the last two professors who were president of America? Woodrow Wilson and basically Barack Obama. And then every other president wasn't. Because eggheads and academics don't do well in politics. It takes somebody with real life experience, and we've seen that over a century. So I absolutely agree with you, and I think some of the realities of the situation completely back up what you're saying. Why is it that we're saying, oh, this is what you must be to run? Based upon what? I've seen highly educated people sell us out when they got into office, and no degree trained them how to do that or guarantee that you got a degree in not being a sellout or a vendido, as we say in Latino. So what exactly are the qualifications for office, and why are we accepting the elites saying it when we've basically gotten screwed over and not had any of the laws that we've wanted as Americans passed since the 1970s?
What was the name of the Latino way of describing that?
I'll spell it for you. And we'll say it together, everybody, okay?
Yeah.
Hey, kids. Here you go, kids.
That's a great phrase.
Called vendido.
Vendido.
Let's say it together, kids. Vendido. Let's say it one more time. Vendido.
Vendido.
There you go. That's it. That means sell out, not a person who's good for the folks.
Yeah. Vendido. We don't need any more vendidos.
That's so great. I can't tell you how many people I've taught that word during the campaign. I love it. It means store out of goods, literally, but the slang version is you're a
Yeah,
sellout.
it means there's nothing inside.
Yeah.
Right? It's like there's nothing here. There's nothing inside this. This package is empty. So when your package is empty, you are full of what else is in your package, in your market, in your store. You're storing the thoughts of others, the ideas that you are told to perpetuate, which is really having to do with predatory power and not with actual substantive change for the people that are electing you into office. So, yeah, so you become a sellout long before you ever even get into office, because that's the way traditionally that you get into office, right? That you've already sold out. Like in my campaign, I think I've raised maybe $1,300 for gas money just to get around and pray. So that's pretty cool. But I was looking at what I've raised, and then I was looking at a recent list of even some other candidates, like who's the top Democratic candidate right now?
Well, John Drake says it's him. According to, if I can, let me show you this. Oh, hold on. Let me show you. So, and I'd like to, since we're doing that, I'd like to ask you this, and then we will get to the question.
I really do. I am a fan of John Drake.
Everyone's a fan of John Drake. Even people who don't like Democrats are fans.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Can you see this chart
Kevin
here?
Faulconer, I think is he's actually a Republican.
Yeah, there he is at 6%. This is the new poll, and according to this one, John Drake is listed as the top Dem, right above you.
How come he's above me? Only because he's a man, I think.
He technically got more.
Oh, it's like by percentage, like by 3.
Yeah, so it wasn't enough to put. So this is probably like 4.2, 4.4. Nobody broke 5. He's slightly ahead of you, technically ahead, according to this poll. But the margin of error here and the percentages mean it's yours to gain and be the top Dem. He was calling himself the top Democrat because Kevin Paffrath yesterday said he doesn't want to be a Democrat anymore and would like to leave the party. And when you trash your own party in the middle of an election, it means you're a fake member of that party. So that if he's not a real Dem, that drops down to this person, John Drake, or conceivably candidate Holly Beatty. We just wanted to point out, isn't this interesting that here's John, Holly, John Drake, Holly Beatty, Jacqueline McGowan, Brandon Ross all participated in Yes California debates. Kevin Kiley refused. I talked to him personally and his staff, and he refused. And then Patrick Kilpatrick, Joel Ventresca, and Daniel Watts all participated.
Yeah.
But isn't it? It's almost like the people who participated in the Yes California debates did better than the people who refused.
Well, I don't know that anybody, I think your program and one other that's been having these roundtables I've participated in, they are being inclusive and they're disseminating to a large audience. I went to, I think it was NBC, was to Fox television station in San Francisco the night that they were doing a debate in last month sometime. And I knocked on the door and I said, I'm a candidate for governor and I should be in there. I want to be a part of the debate. And like they called security, and I wasn't like, forceful or being crazy, but I had just been interviewed earlier that day by a CBS affiliate who was really nice, Kenny Cho in San Francisco, and he did a really nice piece, but mostly they interspersed the whole clip with pictures of Gavin Newsom and other front runners that were in the debates, and then they talked about how I was like an anti-vaxxer, right? So it was really a story about anti-vaxxing, and I was just a way to tie it all together. But I did get a couple moments to say, what I felt about that. But really, that's the spin, right? Really, it's the spin that we're all in. So it wasn't really. So in other words, there's been a lockout for candidates like myself to be able to participate in the larger discussion. And I was hoping that after these more recent polls came out, this poll and the other one, the USA survey, showed I had 5% actually. And
Congratulations.
thank you. I don't know what that means, but I was told when I knocked on the door at Fox that if I was in the polls, then I would be invited, but I hadn't been in the polls yet. And so I was hoping that, there'd be another round of debates after I hit the polls. But of course, the whole election process has been so dubious, right? It's like it would take way too long to explain the rather sinister and strange process that this has been for me and the other candidates.
I will just, if I may, I will just add that there was a poll that showed candidate McGowan was essentially tied with Kevin Paffrath. And the debates told that campaign the same thing they told you. If you show up in the polls, you get to be in the debates. So she contacted them and said, here I am. I'm in the polls. You invited Paffrath. I'm basically tied with him. And she got zero response from any of the debate coordinators.
Right.
Almost like they lied to her face, or like they just don't want women candidates in debates. I mean, the thing that got me was women are over half the voting base and half the population. There's no real women, basically. I mean, there's one, Caitlyn Jenner, but most of it's all men. How come we aren't seeing more women candidates? How come women candidates, when they poll equivalent to men, don't get invited to the debate? And how does this happen in California that views itself as the bastion of progressive politics for the whole world to follow? That seems a little bit strange, almost like we're not treating women fairly, although we like to think as though we are fair to women. What's going on? Am I getting this wrong? Walk us through it.
Well, I think that the first reporter that actually takes up that question that you just posed will, should win a Nobel Prize. Because, right, I just don't know that the point of the mainstream media really is to report the news so much as create the news. You see, that's the difference. I actually was a journalist for quite some time. I worked for Channel 13 in Sacramento as an intern in the Sacramento Bee for a couple years.
Okay, in the belly of the beast, so to speak.
Well, I covered a bit more like the beauty of the news world with features and such, but what I saw when I was at Channel 13 was the editors would say what the news wanted to be that day, and then the reporters would need to go out and find that angle. I was actually there during the O.J. Simpson trials, and I remember a new book had just come out about O.J., and the editor of that day said there must be reaction to this, so go find it. So the news reporter that I was following was told to do that, right? So he's scanning where to go, and he ends up going to bookstore, and and there's no one there. There's no one at the bookstore, and there's no reaction happening. But he keeps asking, and then one person that was walking through the bookstore said, "Oh, I've seen it." So he says, "Can I get that on, footage?" So they're like, "Okay." So he gets this person saying, "Yes, I've seen it." That's all he could get. The rest had to do with the footage of the bookstore, the picture of the book being slid across the screen, the picture of OJ, and then the voiceover, right? So telling people how to interpret what they're seeing, right? So that is construction of information. It's not reporting news. And that's what television news is, right? So what would happen if I or Jackie was invited to or even John was invited to a debate is that they would have unpredictability, because I'm going to say things like, I'm questioning this narrative that you're saying to me right now that our water shortage is our greatest challenge. I think that it's actually the theft of water from private companies and from our governor who's stealing the water, right? They wouldn't know how to actually, they would be left speechless, and they'd be just like, we don't know what to do with this. We don't know how to compute, right? So they have to only allow candidates in that they actually already have control over because they're a part of the same system already behind the scenes. They're not unpredictable. They're actually already vetted. So, what people need to understand, if they're, listen to me, please. If there's a candidate who has been invited to be on the television, you can better believe that if they were to win, we would have more of the same, a slightly different flavor, maybe a little lip service to something. But you can see Larry Elder has had the vaccine. John Cox was like proud to say, I've got the vaccine. My wife has it. My 16-year-old daughter. Kevin Kiley has said, I have the vaccine. All of them, Kevin Faulkner, Kevin Prathrath, they've all had it. What does that mean? That means that they have all, either they're lying, right? And they just want to have people feel like they don't need to fear them, which I'm not saying that that's the case, or they are willing to put a substance in their bodies that is a genetic altering substance that is potentially very poisonous to humans that we have really no data on. And so
I'm sorry.
sorry, I know you don't want me to go into those details of those things.
Just because YouTube's, if we could steer clear of vax, I get what you're saying. I think you covered it well enough.
I'll use
They're
other
crazy
language.
on YouTube with this.
I'm just trying to prove a point. My point is that in order to find somebody that's likely to have a different policy in state governance, you'd probably want a governor who didn't actually put the substance in their own bodies, you know. Right? I'm just saying, what the likelihood of having something change needs to come from somebody that's saying, no, I don't agree with this. And
right.
And one of the big things that's driving this recall, it's not solely this issue, but one of the biggest things that is driving this recall is that issue. So it's a big part of the conversation, and it's not even really being a part of the conversation in those debate channels. So that's very important to understand if people want real change.
All the candidates saying, wow, we're radically different from each other, but they completely line up on particular issues. I think that's what you're intimating.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I have to ask because we had a comment and I promised. I have other questions I'd like to ask you, but
yeah,
this was our comment. So what would you do about fires, water shortages, sky-high taxes, cost of living? And then I'm going to get some other questions I want to ask you, but this was a comment. So roughly, quickly, what are your big plans? And I know people can find out more on your website. But roughly, how would you handle fire, water shortages, sky-high taxes?
I like how the guy says, what is this lady going to do?
You know.
Yeah,
sorry.
Because, you know, I understand it. Like, I can be very, like, like big picture, like, but we also need to, like, dive down to the details. Well, the first thing with the fires is, just put me in office so I can solve this problem. It's a multi-pronged need. The first thing is, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot. I would love to activate our Native American brother and sisters to actually employ them to remember what the natural way of fire prevention was before we conquered the state, right? Because they did not have a word for wild. All of the forests were tended. They were stewards of the land. They knew every little inch of the land, even though it appeared to be wild, right? They walked it, they knew it, they cultivated it, they were stewards of it, and they would have small controlled fires for brush control all the time. So what I would do is I would find funding to reignite pun intended, I guess, their ancestral wisdom and put them on the front of helping us to understand how to effectively manage these forests. I believe that there's unbroken wisdom in these people living on reservations or not living on reservations, or for us to unearth their practices and give them contribution for this knowledge. So that's one thing that I'd like to do. Another thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to allow for funding for community collaborative work days that are like ongoing or weekly events. So imagine in your neighborhood receiving money for lunch. So like maybe like food trucks show up that are gonna give everybody, you know, like snacks and break foods. And then you got shovels, and then you have all the things that you need to get dirty. And everybody shows up, and we have community clearing days. It's like, for example, I'm staying at a friend's house in LA right now, and her house is on a hill. There's lots of dry grass. Some of it's tended, some of it's not. There's no reason why the people that are all living in this block couldn't come together with just a little bit of money. It doesn't take a lot to get some shovels and some lunch. You know what I'm saying? But this is actually what people need. We actually need to have community investment in the tending of our lands. So it seems simple. It's like, oh, this is still airy fairy, but it's not. It's about large policies at the top, and it's about community action. So it's like a braid. You have to have both. You have to have civic engagement, and so it's from the it's from the communities up, and then it's from the governance down. So the other thing that we need, of course, is to open up the forests for logging, but with sustainable logging practices, right? So we're not going to open them back up to what it used to be. There's like the pendulum swing where it was overlogged, and then there was decimated, and now there's nothing. You know, we're looking for balance. So it's like, what is the amount that we can take out without disturbing the wildlife too much and with having sustainable forests? Finding some sort of balance there. And then I personally feel that there's a lot going on with our weather and the dryness of our climate that comes from a lot of issues that are challenging to talk about. But I do think that the 5G is creating a dryerness in our environment. Like, it's a low-level microwave essentially. And so I think that it's contributing to the dryness of our atmosphere. We can go more into water next, but these are some of the real ideas I have around fire prevention. Essentially, I just think that we should have fire prevention because we don't have any fire prevention right now.
No, we don't.
Right?
No,
So
we
just
don't.
like the first step is, yeah, let's get some fire prevention. Step
Well,
one.
what about what you gave a pretty good answer on fire. By the way, for everybody, if you work with indigenous communities in California, they use the word stewards of the land and tended. And so, Holly, I can tell that you have been interacting with these people because you're using the same language that they use. How Californian of you. Congratulations. Quickly, though, I have another question I want to ask you, and then we have to get to the other part of the debate. But how would you deal with high taxes? Because a lot of homeowners feel like that about taxes in California right now. They are upset and just as mad.
I think our tax system is tyrannical and antiquated. So it's like the tax system was built so long ago that it doesn't make sense for us today. And instead of addressing it, we just keep adding to it. And I think it sort of like when you have a wound and then it just starts festering and getting really like it needs to be cleaned out, but it hurts a little bit, right?
Graphic, but yes. I really got what you were saying.
Yeah,
Like,
you see what I'm saying? So for me, the question of taxes, it's not like, oh, let's get rid of this tax or that tax. It's like, okay, no one should be having so much of their income go out that it's like 30 to 60% of their income going out in taxes. So what do all I would like to look at, what is the average person paying in taxes for sales tax, for tax on their homes, for their income tax, even if they're a business person, their business tax. I would want to do some portfolio evaluation and say, okay, let's get this to like 15 or 20%, maybe 15%. And where do we want that to come from? I, I think that when you tax people so high that they cannot afford to live where they are living, that their taxes are too high than their mortgage, or they're taxed out of a place that they've lived for a while, and been able to sustain the mortgage. It's obviously a criminal system. It's actually criminal. It's designed, the system is not designed to help people get ownership of homes and sustain their ownership of homes. It's actually designed to continue to stranglehold them. So the system of taxes we have is designed to strangle everyone into constant stress, constant struggle. And what I would want to do as the governor is immediately try to create some relief, and then change the entire system. And I really think that I wouldn't have to do much if so. I have a plan for transparent mapping of resources, and I could talk about that next. But I have some new ideas that I think would help people. See, if you don't really understand the complexity of a system that you're in and how it is that you are in a stranglehold, then you can just like, well, let's look at the sales tax, let's look at the gas tax. Well, okay, I'm going to vote for this person if they say they're going to lower the gas tax because that bothers me. That's not enough right now. We're in a quagmire of overtaxation that's really criminal. So if you vote for me, you'll see a complete transparency. I would take a sample of a cross section of our populace, let's say, a few folks from all walks of life, and do a tax analysis on them that everybody could see, a tax audit and an analysis. Wouldn't that be cool? You could see this kind of person has this kind of taxes, and it would be like a graph, and you could kind of behold it and comprehend it all at once, right? And then you could say this is how people tweak their reporting to get a little bit better or a little bit worse, or this is what some people know how to do and other people don't know how to do. Okay, this is the mess, and this is the inequity, the inequality, the difference between, because of education or access to high paid attorneys, tax attorneys. Okay, and then maybe give some relief after looking at all that data. It's hard to know exactly what I would say, but the first thing I would do is elevate the conversation so that the people knew what we were all talking about, and then have the goal of reducing our tax burden to a level where we can all thrive instead of try to just survive.
Okay. I want to ask you about resource mapping, but only for a few minutes, and then we're going to go to CalExit. Fair?
You keep saying only for a few minutes. I go on and on. Sorry.
Well, then we could do this. We could go to CalExit for 20 minutes, and then if we have time, we can come back to resource mapping. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine. Let's get to your question.
Okay. Now, you can be totally against it. You can hate the idea. You can oppose it. What do you think of the idea of California as a nation becoming one?
Well, could I ask you, why do you think that it's a good thing for California to be its own nation? Because
Fair enough. Oh, no,
yeah,
good.
I'm interested to understand your perspective, with the CalExit. Like, that's kind of like a coined term, and I would like to get some clarity of your vision for the CalExit.
In February 2017, Donald Trump was elected president. The day after the election, Californians essentially revolted. So you had Kevin De Leon and Anthony, I forget his name, the third and fourth highest ranked legislators in all of California, with the entire California legislature, issued a statement the day after Donald Trump was elected and said, America is clearly out of line with our value. We woke up as strangers in a foreign land, realizing that we lived in a country that did not share our values. The entire California legislature said that the day after Trump was elected in February 2017. Around that same time, 32% of Californians, one third, said they wanted to secede immediately. They didn't want to talk, they wanted out. Now, the surveys came from Reuters, Ipsos, and Stanford University. So we have two surveys from some of the most reputable polling companies on the earth. And they said one third of Californians were ready to go, and 47.5, almost half, said they were willing to discuss full-blown secession. You add that up to the fact that you had the California legislature refer to America as a foreign country. I got to tell you, that's kind of like a fault line. And then we add on to the fact here that California is a donor state. So how come we don't have enough money for schools and roads and bridges and stuff? We have the worst schools, roads, dams, seaports, airports, and levees in all of America, according to the federal government. Our schools are equivalent to Mississippi, and yet we pay more into the American system than we get. So we're putting billions more into the system, and yet we have the worst of everything according to the worst states. And we pay so many taxes that we have to raise taxes on ourselves. The fact is, the gas tax we had to raise on ourselves because we didn't have enough money for roads. Why? Because we gave that much money in extra federal income taxes to 35 states. So a lot of Californians don't like the idea that they subsidize 35 states and then have to raise taxes on themselves. And they also don't like the fact that these 35 states they're subsidizing don't like opinionated women, don't like Bernie Sanders ideas, don't like LGBTQ, don't like immigrants, think kids it's okay to round them up and put them into cages. And so a lot of Californians are going, why am I supporting a group of people who hate me for what I think is the right thing to do, and I have to subsidize them to the point that I can't pay for things to cover myself? And then occasionally they elect someone called Donald Trump. And almost half of California, according to GQ magazine, said, we should seriously consider leaving. That's why.
I really, really am so glad that I asked that question and that you took the time to paint that picture. Because there's a lot of nuance to the reasoning behind the impulse for a Cal exit. So the first thing that I'd like to say is that when Trump was elected president, it was a series of events that led up to that. One of the reasons why I am a Democrat, it authentically so, is that I, like many Californians, really was inspired by Bernie Sanders. I was a Democrat before that, but I felt the burn and hoped that he would get into office because in so many ways, not in every way, I think his politics were a little bit too socialist for me, honestly, but he had a heart and you could feel that. And he was motivated by his family values and we could feel that. And so if we recall, there was actual criminal, fraudulent election activity that took place within the National Democratic Party that chose Hillary instead of Bernie.
The crossover ballot controversy of 2016?
It's not a controversy. It's so self-evident. Come on. Like, if you look at just the numbers.
I have to be impartial.
People, well, here, all you have to do is look at the massive turnout for these rallies that he had. Okay? Look at the massive turnouts for those rallies. There was millions of people. Where did those votes go? Who showed up to Hillary Clinton's meetings in churches and in community centers? They were like, hello, is anybody here? Come on.
I've heard this from many Bernie Sanders supporters, and I liked his spirit. But
my point is this: we felt betrayed when Bernie Sanders didn't become the president, but Trump became the president because there was questionable activity happening within the Democratic National Party that members of the National Democratic Party themselves said was happening. For example, I'm going to go blank on her name right now, but one of my favorite senators or congresswomen from Hawaii, what is her name?
yeah, Tulsi
Surfer. Yeah, Tulsi. Love that lady, right? She was the chairperson or one of the,
Yeah.
right? She quit.
Yeah.
Okay, so that tells you something very solid was happening that was just like, whoo. So here's the thing. We felt betrayed because our hearts were ready for an opening, for an opportunity to change and to go more towards this levolution that Bernie was offering, okay? Which, by the way, is what people would experience if they voted for me. Okay.
Okay.
Just saying, there's a lot of similarity between where my platform is and what his platform was. And so when that happened, there was almost like a feeling of heartbreak in California. You remember? It was like heartbreak. It was like, I'm going to be in love. I'm going to be in this new relationship. And then, and Bernie himself, when he found out that he didn't win, there's this moment on television where he's like happy. He's like, I'm winning. And then he like goes into this building. I don't know where it was. And there was like a conversation he had. And he came out and he was like, it was like his something just dropped. And I don't know what happened, but something happened and the game was changed. And then Trump beat Hillary because Hillary was not Bernie Sanders. So the thing is that I feel like Californians had a little heartbreak, but I also feel like, okay, Californians need to stop complaining and stop whining. I think that we live in a golden state. And instead of saying that we don't have enough money to do the things that we need to do, I think that we need to realize that we're not doing the things that we need to do. We need to own our own accountability and responsibility. It's not about more money. Obviously, the national government is requesting things of us that we don't want to be a part of. So I would say, no, I am not in favor of not being part of the United States. You will find that I am, I believe in the American dream. And I believe in the spirit of our United States Constitution and in the spirit of the Declaration of Independence. I feel that actually that's what wants to be born right now. What we had originally was the physical birth of our nation. And I feel like what's really wanting to happen right now is the spiritual birth, or the real true emergence of those ideals into reality. Like, you cannot tell people that you live in a land that has equality and then not have them feel equal and not have that played out in their true experience. That's the tension that we're feeling. We want actually to have what our Constitution says to actually be what we are experiencing, and it's not. I don't think it's about breaking apart our country. I think it's about actually living into the ideals of our country and finding unity. Like, so I feel that what we need is honesty in governance. And that yes. So what I would do in terms of exiting, for example, with education, I would definitely withdraw ourselves from getting federal funding for education and finding ways to pay for it ourselves so that we're not held to any strings attached. I don't want to be held to any strings attached. I would like California to become autonomous and to figure out how to make our own state work. And actually, I think we should be leaders within our states. Okay? So we can show how we can be successful with less. We don't need to say yes to purse strings, get off of that parental purse string and figure out how to do more with less and how to generate more with less. So I'm not interested in the national, uh, the control. I don't want California to be controlled by the national politics, but I would like us to lead our 50 states into a whole different way of operating and become a model, a leader. And I would like to see the United States Constitution grow so that others in the world could adopt our our system for freedom. You, anyways, I could go on and on, but I'm a patriot, but a kind of a different sort of patriot. I believe in the
I
ideal.
hear you. I hear you. I think Martinez took a similar stance as a candidate. He said, yes, more independence from the federal government. You don't need to leave the union of states, but why can't California be more infrastructurally independent? Energy grids, power grids, roads grids, so that we're kind of dependent upon ourselves alone. You used the word autonomous and no to federal strings. So less
Yeah.
federal connections, less federal strings, more dependence on ourselves, less dependence on America, but not full blown secession. Is that a fair summary? End of debate?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you a question though. When Bernie Sanders got cheated in the 2016 election, I was introduced it as the crossover ballot controversy. So I was not a Bernie Sanders supporter.
Okay.
I liked many of his ideas, and 80% of all my friends were Bernie Sanders hardcore fans. So just to put it in perspective, I wasn't like, ew. I was like, I don't know, it's the extreme socialism, but everyone I knew was about this guy. Okay, so I got it. That respect. When he was cheated and they tricked the system and they tricked voters so that people couldn't vote for Bernie, which did happen. And then they also, I think, pushed people physically down at the Nevada convention so that Hillary got both the California and the Nevada conventions. There's the film there. Many of them felt that the system was rigged and undemocratic, and that Bernie's things that he was talking about, like free college, universal health care, a living wage, focusing on climate change and racial justice at the police level, they felt, okay, well, now that Bernie's gone, the only way that we're going to have that is if California is an independent country, because America will never do those things. And one third of Yes California is full of Bernie Sanders supporters for that reason. Now we look at 2022,
Yeah.
and we saw that Bernie was robbed again. There was the special democratically made program for counting votes, I think, in a primary state, which was built by computer programmers who worked for the Clinton and Obama campaign, and it accidentally said Buttigieg won instead of Bernie. And there was confusion for 2 weeks, and then Biden says, well, actually, it's me. And then Buttigieg gets a premier position appointed after he admits, basically, after the campaign, that he lied. So a lot of Bernie Sanders fans gave, they said, well, 2016, he got robbed. 2020, he got robbed. In California, he's not that radical. We all like free college. We all like universal health care. We all believe in minimum wage. We all believe in focusing on climate change. It's a big deal in America, but it ain't here. And yet Californians were denied 2 opportunities due to cheating. And so many of the Yes California members believe we're never, ever going to have the things we want here in California, because they'll never let someone like Bernie have here, and then we'll have to do it on our own. How are all those Bernie Sanders people wrong? And working with America can get us the Bernie Sanders things that we've been promised in 2 separate elections that we were cheated from.
Right now in California, I have so many friends that have basically moved to Costa Rica, to Mexico, Costa Rica, or Florida, right? I have a lot of friends that are not in alignment with the current policies of the day that are leaving. And they're asking me, Holly, why are you staying? And why are you running for governor? Like, just get out of there. I feel very strongly that we need to take a stand in California. That California is a place where these changes can occur first. And we can be a wave so that there's like a crescendo coming our way that's like more control, less freedom, and we need to send the wave back. So I feel like if California holds, the nation can hold, the world can turn its tide. I feel very strongly about that we are a golden state with a high destiny, and that we're meant to stand and hold our ground and not to flee. And I feel that the answer is not to leave the United States of America, but to stop and end the criminal activity taking place in our election process. Let's address the criminal activity in our election process and in our voting process. Let's talk about the recall right now. There's a lot of different ways we could look at the election fraud that is happening right now. Potential election fraud. Let me rephrase that. I'm just going to give my own personal experience. So I have a roommate who got his special mail-in ballot. I got my special mail-in ballot. It's really interesting. I wish I had him here to show you. One of them, his has a perforated edge on top that has a receipt that you can pull off to say that, so you have a QR code to double check what you voted for. So it's like your receipt, okay? My ballot doesn't have that. It doesn't even have it. The form of my ballot is missing the receipt. I can't even verify what I'm gonna vote for, what I'm gonna vote. That right there is voter fraud, because it's not the same. There's two people that are voting and they don't have the same system in place for the two of us. So that alone, that little infraction, is a fraudulent activity. I remember when I went to go vote for Bernie, I went to the polls to vote, and I was told that I was a mail-in voter, an absentee voter. And I know that I had just looked like 5 days earlier to see what my status was and what precinct I was supposed to go to, right? So I knew just 5 days before on my little thing on online where to go. And I get there and they say you can't vote, you're a mail-in voter. So I go home and I look at my computer, and it's changed. It's been changed within days. And so I go to my mailbox and there's no ballot. Later that day at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my mailman shows up. He's got the ballot. It came that day of the election at 3 o'clock to my house. Luckily, I was home. If I worked, I wouldn't have been able to vote. So I take that in and I try to vote, and they say, oh, we can't use this. You'll need a provisional ballot. So I say, but they want me to turn that one in. That's what they're saying right now. You're going to turn this one in, and so I used a provisional ballot because that's what they told me I had to use. And then later on, they were saying in the news how provisional ballots were not valid. So
more hijinks. Yeah, more hijinks.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not interested in backing down. I'm interested in having courage and getting an honest system in place. That's why I'm running for governor.
but I would like to double back to one thing you said, just for some of the people here. How long do we wait for change? Now,
We don't
citizens,
wait. We don't
well,
wait.
but if we're saying, okay, we could have the Bernie Sanders things that a majority of Californians want, but we shouldn't leave America. We should work with America to make those things happen. How long is a reasonable amount of time to wait? For example, climate change. California moved on climate change in 2005. It's 2022. That's about 17 years later, and America's moved backwards on it. So, and California cannot achieve everything it wants with climate change because of limitations at the federal level. Same thing with air quality regulations. We simply can't do it. When we look at Citizens United, that was decided in 2010 about cash and money. It's been a decade, and the conservative court has now taken over. When that conservative court has also removed some of our rights on minorities being gunned down by police when their doors accidentally broken down. Women do not have the right to do class action lawsuits for some forms of sexual intimidation now, according to the Supreme Court. Mexicans can be racially profiled, according to that Supreme Court. And they're looking at some of our LGBTQ rights, and they took away some of our gun control rights. So if we're waiting 17 years for climate change and 10 years for money out of politics, and they did the thing where they backed up Arizona and said it's okay to racially profile people who look Mexican, got to tell you how insulting that is. That's been 8-10 years. How long do we wait, given none of these things have happened in 10 to 17 years? Is it okay to tell people to wait another 10 to 20, or is that unfair?
Well, Texas has just gone through this expression of leaving the union, right? Because they're doing something similar right now for different reasons.
Yeah.
How good does it feel to have the United States not have Texas? I mean, my response is we should never wait for that which we can do right now. And I do not think that we need to wait for anything to happen to us or for us. And it's not about fighting, it's about creating. So it's not about trying to fight something that's not working, it's about creating something new. So, like, for example, when I gave the example for the fires, and I said, we can get our citizens out and start working on this right together right now. That's not something that would require a legislative process to happen. That would require even there would be volunteers to do it for free. Even there would be neighborhoods that would just do potlucks. Even there would be lumber stores that would donate the shovels. If there's a person who is in a position to be heard and listened to, for example, to galvanize the people, to inspire. This is what we need we need inspiration and we need coordination. So there are actions that we can take in which we are monitoring. For example, we could, for Latino racial profiling, we could create a system where every Latino that is brought into custody is immediately goes into a system. Say, let's see. There's a trigger that happens as soon as a Latino is brought in, and it goes into a database, and then their information comes up, and they get a call, and they have somebody that goes over what just happened and how did you get there. Okay, and then we create the stories and we catch it in real time. So you could have a Latino racial profiling citizen action network.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's awesome.
So
That's
every issue we face, we have a solution amongst ourselves when we activate our will and we don't wait for somebody else. And we don't actually need money. We need inspiration, and we need to give ourselves permission to take action for ourselves. And we need to give our time freely or for not that much, so we find people that are like, we pro bono this.
Right? Activism.
Yeah, activism in a real way with real concrete, tangible things. Like if you had that system in place, and that, say say a young Latino 18-year-old, he's going into the store to get himself a Coca-Cola or whatever. He gets picked up for the wrong reasons. And so, what if that kid got a phone call while he's just there being booked and someone said, hey, we saw that you were picked up. What really happened? It wouldn't just be that there was somebody to help him get out in that moment if he needed it, but somebody would care. And that would touch his heart, and that would change his life. It would change his trajectory in life.
That's impressive. I've never heard of that idea. I'm really impressed. That's pretty good. Okay, we're going to go to the lightning round. This will be where you can say, how would you like 40 million people to think of you? You have, let me change this up. You and I walked into a convenience store, and you grabbed a pack of gum, and I grabbed a lighter, and you're standing next to me, and you can tell you got about 2 minutes to convince me that you're the person to vote for, and then you'll never see me again. What is it that you would say to me in 2 minutes and no more than 2 minutes to get inside my head and make it where I could never forget the Holly Beatty 2021.com campaign? In 2 minutes, candidate Beatty.
Well, first I just want to say that I would just love for 40 million people to think of me, to know of me. So let's start there. And if I just met you, Marcus, the only thing that I would know how to do with you or anyone else is to open my heart and to see you as who you really are, which is somebody who is motivated to make a difference in the world and to help give a voice, especially to women, especially to minorities, especially to those that are not being heard. And if I just had one moment to say something about myself that would be long lasting, it would be, there's nothing that we can do to change the world alone. We must do it together. And I believe in you, and I believe in the capacity of emergent leadership, where a leader inspires and encourages the heart and is no better or special, but just serves a particular function to allow a coordination, a collaboration, a communication to occur between all of us that are essential and that are waiting for an opportunity to make the world a better place. And I feel that I am that facilitator. And so I would like to ask that people see me as worthy, and I will rise to the occasion.
You work in politics, and you have to put up these defensive walls to show, separate yourself from the person, keep some professional boundary. You are the best candidate in this race at absolutely obliterating those defensive walls people put up and just going, like, peering right into their soul. I've met many of the candidates. No one does that just the way you do. It's slightly disturbing and incredibly so we will end it there. Check out Holly2021.com. Thank you for being with us, and we will talk to you soon. Appreciate
Marcus, can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Today we didn't get to talk about value-based currency or universal basic income or the resource mapping system, or because I'm like a let's have an appetizer, let's have a salad, let's have an entree, let's have a dessert kind of like person, and that's okay. But I just do want to let people know that they can find out those deeper questions of my platform on Holly2021.com that you have listed. And that also I'm picking up my phone and I'm responding directly to people's questions. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, if you go to the very top, it says policies for the people. Go up again. Yeah, right there. and it says 90 steps in 90 days. But if you just go down, you'll see like, what am I saying that I'm going to do? And it just goes down. And I think I stopped at around 45. So, but
Wow, this is a big list.
lower personal state tax. Look at that one. Lower personal state tax to zero for all earners of less than 1 million a year. I don't know. I don't know exactly what that number would be. Like I said, I'd want to do a round table. You have to do a lot of investigation before you make changes. Lower the gas tax. There are some things that I think, but that I agree with, that I heard other people say. And this was sort of like out. What is it? What is that one? Provide monetary.
It was
Yeah.
talking about people who were abused by a spouse, and I've never really seen a candidate talk equally about making sure that people in spousal abuse were provided for, as well as the economy directly. That's certainly a unique profile.
Yeah, because actually, like I know two women right now who are in relationships with abusive people, and they have to stay in that relationship until they can find a means. A lot of people become homeless just because they need a transition. These are all my pictures. That's my daughter when she was a baby. She's now 17. That's my son. So I have a son and my daughter. That picture is my first yoga studio. I've owned 3 yoga studios. That was my first one.
3. Wow.
2 in Sacramento, and now 1. And this is me at a festival. This is my happy, dancey self. See, I totally am your California billboard girl.
Totally. Oh my God, this is California right here.
I apologize, everyone, but that's just my natural state of being.
Yeah, this is you. Look at these sweet kids. They looks like they love each other. That's awesome.
I was a single mom since they were 3 and 5, and I left. Yeah.
A lot of respect for you doing that. My mom was a single mom.
There's me and Nako and Medicine for the People. He's in the he's on the side. I did a video with him at Wanderlust. So I used to travel and teach yoga and meditation through Native American techniques so there's a lot of me doing that on the internet.
I don't know what that's called, but I've seen this move.
This is a yoga teacher. Oh yeah. So that's called Dragonfly.
I knew that had a name. I've seen that before.
Anyway.
Wow. You are so totally you. I mean, unfiltered. I love it. Well, everybody's so guarded and so pristine and so, is that really the person? Is it not? How do you actually get to know this person? Is what I'm seeing real? That's what everybody says. I could tell with you, what you're showing here is you. So if you like this, great. If you don't, but this is her. There's no filter. You actually know who the hell you're voting for and how they're going to work on things. And my God, what if we lived in a state or nation state where all of our politicians were like this?
I have a wolf dog. Her name's Flower.
Wow. Dog. That is a big, wow. Okay. All right. I have to end the stream. Going to another event with Candidate Watts at 7 and Candidate McCurry at 8.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm giving you energy for your journey this evening.
Feel it.
And I'm in LA, so hopefully maybe I'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to go. Yeah. So I am going to pray right now. Tomorrow I'm going to the waters, and then on Sunday I'm going to go to the border, and I'm going to pray and sing with friends that the border energy is released, and the natural migratory pattern of the South American and the Central American and the Mexican people can come like birds, come up and down, because that's what they were doing before anybody else was here.
I have to remain impartial. I'm going to stop.
You can come with me and pray, and it can be an impartial prayer. But anyways, that's what we're going to do while I'm in LA.
Okay. I will talk to you very soon.
Okay. Take care.
Take care.